Hello, Untitled everyone. Welcome back to class 12 biology. In this video, we will start our new chapter, that is chapter number 5, Principles of Inheritance and Variation. Principles of Inheritance and Variation. This will be the first chapter of our genetics portion of the unit. I hope you must have read the first few pages of your textbook as I have requested before. This is pretty important. If you have not done the pre-reading, I request you to do so and then start watching the video. It will be much more beneficial for you. As I said, this chapter is the first chapter of the genetics portion. Now, in order to, but before we move forward, we will know what we mean by genetics, right? Genetics is the branch of biology which deals with inheritance and variation. Right. So genetics is the branch of biology which deals with inheritance and variation. So what do we mean by inheritance? So by inheritance we mean that inheritance is the process in which there is a passage of characters from parents to offsprings, right? How characters are being passed down from parents to offsprings. So that is what we study in genetics. That's one thing. And the second thing that we study in genetics is how variations are produced within organisms, right? Even though the offspring and parent may tend to look similar, but they are not exactly identical, right? So there is some kind of variations in their character. Variation, so the degree by which an offspring differs from its parents is known as variation. So that is the definition. That is a simple definition of genetics. What was that? Genetics is the branch of biology which deals with inheritance and variation. So let's start, right? So in this lesson we will be discussing about Gregor Mendel and his hybridization experiments with pea plants. So this is the pea plant. So the scientific name for the pea plant is Pisum sativum. So Gregor Mendel he carried out experiments with pea plants to study the heredity pattern of characters, right? How characters are passed down from parents to offsprings, that is inheritance. And the observations that he made from his experiments became the foundations of the modern genetics. Therefore, he is now popularly referred to as the father of modern genetics. To give a little bit of background on the life of Gregor Mendel, he was an Austrian monk. He was born in a very poor peasant family in year 1822, and it is said that he became a monk in order to continue his education. His parents could not afford to pay for his college fees, so he joined a monastery so that the monastery will pay for his education. So that was the reason. I don't know if it's true or not, but it is said so, right? He was primarily a mathematician. Therefore, he used statistics to make sense of his experimental results, which was quite unusual at that particular time. And that's one of the reasons why his work didn't get much recognition from his fellow scientific colleagues of his time. Right? There are many reasons why his work went unnoticed during his lifetime, but that is one of the reasons. He used mathematics to make sense of his results. If you want to know more about the life of Mendel, you can watch these two videos. These videos are available on YouTube. You can watch them at leisure later on. You can pause the video, copy down the links, and then you can watch it anytime you want. So the first movie is quite lengthy. The second one is much shorter. So you can watch that. So Mendel, he studied the pattern of inheritance in pea plants. His model organism was the pea plant, right? In pea plants, he selected 7 characters, each having a pair of contrasting traits, right? So what do I mean by that? Let's take the example of flower color, right? So flower color is the character of the pea plant. So flower color has got 2 contrasting traits, right? In pea plants, the flower color has got 2 contrasting traits. One of the trait is violet and another trait is white. A pea plant can have either violet flower or white flower. Another example we can which we commonly use throughout the lesson will be stem height. That is the character. So the 2 contrasting traits will be tall and dwarf, right? The plants, the pea plants can be either tall or they can be dwarf, Right. So these are the 7 characters, and each having a pair of contrasting traits. So there are 14 traits in total. So he selected these 14 traits to study the inheritance pattern in pea plants. After selecting the traits in pea plants that he wanted to study, he started his hybridization experiments. So how exactly did he perform his hybridization experiments? He did that through a process known as artificial pollination. You might want to remember this term, artificial pollination. Pollination carried out by human beings intentionally is known as artificial pollination. We will now discuss the steps involved in artificial pollination as carried out by Gregor Mendel with pea plants. In the first step, Mendel took 2 pea plants, one with violet flower or purple flower and one with white flower. He then removed the stamens from the purple flower, and this particular process is known as emasculation. He then collected the pollen from the white flower, the pollens from the white flower, and then he deposited it on the carpel of the purple flower. So this is called as artificial pollination. He then obtained the seeds and he planted them. And then he obtained the F1 generation. So look over here. The first 2 plants, the purple flower plant and the white flower plant, these 2 are known as the parents or the P generation. The plants obtained by crossing these 2 plants are known as the F1 generation or the first filial generation. So you might want to remember this.